Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Let's start with some introductions and see if both of our clickers work. This is a test. Hey. Donc, salut tout le monde. Je suis Alex. Je viens d'Angleterre. J'habite en Allemagne et j'ai étudié à Lille il y a trop longtemps. J'aimerais tellement bien faire tout le talk en français, mais il y a deux problèmes. L'un, c'est que Thomas ne parle pas français.
Yeah.
L'autre, c'est que je peux pas. Ça y était. I'm sorry. In the breaks. So, I'm Alex. I'm a tester. I am also a manager, but today I'm here as a tester. And I usually find myself wondering, how did I get here? Like I did in this picture. I love exploratory testing, and I'm going to share with you some of my perspectives on why I do that. And Thomas is going to too.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Thomas. I'm Alex's colleague. I'm doing most of my time test automation on various layers. I'm working in agile teams, and of course I'm doing exploratory testing.
Awesome stuff. Okay. Can everyone understand us okay? Yeah? Okay. If there's any time when you don't, I come from Liverpool, so my English is not normal English, okay? And I speak fast when I get excited, and I love exploratory testing, so I do get. So if at any point, just wave, right? We're fine, it's a nice room. Okay. We're going to take you through a few things today. What is exploratory testing, just in case some people aren't quite sure or still think it's clicking around, whereas Maxime, why we need it. We've got our 5 points of why we need it. We're going to have a look at various levels. So we're not just going to talk about UI testing exploratory, we're talking about APIs and also units as well. How you can get involved and getting started. We might give you some homework if that's okay. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool.
Okay, let's get started. So at first, put your hand up in the air. Who has heard about exploratory testing? Okay, who's done it?
Hey, this is great.
Cool.
This is a good room. Most of you are probably developers, right? Yeah? Hello. Be nice to us. Is there anyone that says they're a tester? That's fine. We love you. Okay, so I think that this is a great group to talk about this with. It couldn't have been better. Okay, so
let's get started. If we talk about exploratory testing, or some people might say it's basically just clicking around, and of course this is not the case. We are just not zombies that can click around. If we do something, everything has a meaning.
Is anyone a zombie? No, okay.
So every click we do basically has a meaning. There are ideas behind it. There are test ideas behind it. So everything we do while testing, while exploring, is not just clicking. And this we want to show you today.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to give you a couple of definitions. Now there is a reasonably old definition of exploratory testing, which is simultaneous test design, test execution, and learning from the tests. And I like that. But I also like some of the newer stuff that people are talking about. Now, Marit, who is a good friend of mine, and unfortunately I still cannot pronounce her surname because it's Finnish, she says it's an approach to testing, and whoever tests needs to be learning. And when I learn, it changes what I do. And that is exactly what Thomas just said. If I do something goes on in my brain, I learn from it, and I adapt what I'm going to do next. And at one point, I was working with a developer. We were debugging a problem. And he was saying, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. And I looked at him and said, debugging is exploring for developers. And he looked at me and went, this is what you mean when you say exploring? So I realized that any time you don't know what steps you're going to have to take to solve a problem, and you need to take a step to see what the next one is going to be, then you're exploring. I don't know in advance what I'm going to do, but I do know in advance maybe what my first step is going to be. So those are our definitions.
Yes, and now we want to share some of our exploratory testing stories with you. Once I was in a project where we were developing a very large web shop application. Of course, we need to be multi-language capable. And so one day we started to explore our application. We mapped where are basically our risk in these applications, and we figured out one big risk is supporting multi-languages in kind of our features. So we started exploring. We tested different languages like Chinese, Russian, English, German, and so on. And we figured out that there might be a problem in one of our search features. So we took a deeper look into it, and we figured out using the language the application is set in, it's working perfectly fine. But using the application in English language, trying to search for Chinese symbolic language, this would break our application. And we started to dig deeper into it and found for us a severe problem we could then fix.
Lovely. I love stories like that because that's not the necessarily thing I would have thought of to automate, right? We'll get to this later. Story that I have. I was pairing with a tester on an application that I know nothing about. It's a big application, but my idea was I want to teach this person a little bit about exploratory testing, and I want to learn what they're doing in their work because I'm interested, because I care. And we were working together, and he was telling me about the new feature. Okay, so we've got the sales people, the product people, and the developer people, and they can all make decisions on things, and depending on the decisions, they get aggregated, and then we have the status, and it can be green, it can be red, or it can be yellow. And I said, ooh, yellow's interesting. I don't even know why I said that. This led me on to things later on, which is a whole nother talk. I said, let's look at yellow. And okay. How do we get to yellow? Well, we could do this and this. Okay, how can we get from yellow to red or from yellow to green? Because these are statuses that can be changed. Oh, I don't know, let's do this. And about 5 minutes later, we had also found a pretty interesting problem that they hadn't thought about. Mostly because I'd gone, ooh, yellow's interesting. I think that if we'd have looked at this as, I think, quite something, okay, we have to automate this, then we'd have gone, okay, what's the example for green? What's the example for yellow? What's the example for red? We'd have automated a happy path, and we'd have gone, oh, all of the tests are green and everyone's happy. We wouldn't have explored transitions between yellow and red or yellow and green. And I couldn't have told you in advance that that was what I was going to do. And it was great for me. It was lovely for my ego. I have a huge ego. Because he was like, wow. And I'm like, no, I'm just a genius. It's fine. No, but this is one of the things when we're exploring. All of these stuff is in our head, and working through them with other people helps us realize that they're there. So now you can take that away with you. Yellow is interesting. If you have yellow statuses, there might be errors around there. So those are some of our things that we've discovered recently about exploratory testing. I think if you asked us in 2 weeks, we'd have new examples as well.
Probably.
Okay. So we have 5 reasons. But since we have such a nice room, why do you think that we need exploratory testing? Any shout-outs? Why do we need it? Yeah?
Use case that were installed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thinking out of the box, yeah? Yep.
As developer, we love happy path.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saying that. We did not plant this man. Okay, any other reasons? No? Okay, it's okay. Yeah? Yeah, change the behavior. So we have 5 reasons for you. They might not be the only 5, but they're the ones that we use in most of our training materials. So the first one is, and as developers, you know this, the bugs are never where you're looking for them, right? Everyone is nodding. So if we write a test, if we have a test, that's not usually where we find the bugs. Bugs avoid well-tested paths. This is a known thing. That doesn't mean we can get rid of all of our automated tests, because guess what will happen then? They'll come back, right? But we need to be looking next to those things. So reason 1 is bugs hide, and we need to go looking for them. The second reason is, you don't need to read all of this. I was just so pleased that somebody put this together. I'm going to tell you a story about a pelican. I even looked up in French what pelican is. It's pélican. There we go. So I was going for a run in a park early in the morning. It was dark, I didn't know the city, and I'm a woman on my own. What risks do I identify in this situation? I could get attacked, I could get lost. I love it when people say I could get lost first, right? Thanks. I could injure myself. As a good tester, I did a risk analysis of these things, and I decided I was going for a run anyway, right? Went for a run. And in the park, I saw a pelican. Now, I told you that I come from Liverpool. I only know sparrows and pigeons. Anything else for me is a dinosaur. Most specifically this, which looks like a pterodactyl. Not just, you know. So I kind of, at the same time, I'm afraid, but also I'm interested. So I go up to it to take a picture of it for Twitter, obviously, and it runs at me, and I run away. And that is the story of how I got attacked by a dinosaur. The point of this story is that the risks that I identified on that day did not include the risks that happened to me. We are only capable of identifying risks that we can identify, and there are unknown unknowns, and the only way, you're just going to have to believe me on this for the moment, the only way that we can find unknown risks is to explore. We can't have them all in our head. Next time, I'll be on the lookout for pelicans, but next time it'll probably be an earthquake or something. I don't know. Like, who knows? So there are always going to be a pelican. The next thing is that we have something called observational blindness. And if you've seen the video, don't tell people, okay? So, here we go.
This is an awareness test.
Sound works, excellent.
How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13.
Who had 13? Yeah? Excellent.
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Who saw the bear? Who already knew about the bear? Yeah. Go! There he is. Okay, this is actually a phenomenon called observational blindness. When we are looking for things, for example, when we are following a test script, we are blind to really interesting and really obvious things. I have so many stories about times I've even done that as a tester that we could talk all day about them. So if we're not leaving the scripts, then we're missing important things. That's reason number 3. Reason number 4, and this is a flowchart that I wrote because I realize this happens all of the time, is because we always end up needing it anyway. Let me take you on a little journey of me working with a customer for the first time. Alex, please test something. We have test scripts. I roll to disbelieve and probably disbelieve. Okay, are there actually test scripts? If not, we're going to end up exploring anyway, right? If they exist, okay, are they up to date though, or was it a student that did them 12 years ago and then they got forgotten? If they're not up to date, we're going to explore. If we have them and they're up to date, can they be done in time? Because doing all of these things is going to take some time, and the problem is people don't usually leave quite enough time for testing if they're doing waterfall, right? No, okay, so we're going to end up exploring. And if they can, are we going to feel confident after doing them all? And you've just learned from the pelican story that we can't possibly feel confident after doing them all. We know there's still something to do. So we're going to end up exploring. It says here, I've never reached this point. That's a lie. I've never reached this point. The rest of this it would have been a pretty boring flow diagram otherwise, right? The rest of it was just what would happen if those were the next steps. So that's reason 4. And reason 5, and this is what we're going to talk about in the next time, is that you can do it on all of the levels. When we talk about levels at the moment, we're talking about your UI level, an API level, specifically web APIs for today. They're a little bit easier to talk about on that thing, and unit level. So hopefully there's something for everyone here. I'm going to talk about the UI stuff, and then I'm going to hand over to Thomas to talk about API and unit things. Okay, so what does that even look like? What do we do when we're exploring? Let me take this funny story. I always use the Lufthansa website, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to be in France, so we'll take the Air France website. I haven't actually done much exploratory testing of it, but it'll be fine. And then the two testers yesterday tried to check in. It took us about 20 minutes. We ended up on different websites, even though we were clicking the same links. We were already checked in, but I couldn't print my boarding card. Thomas could. We both did or didn't have seats. It was very strange. So anyway, I'm not saying anything bad about Air France. This is just what happens exploring always brings us things. So if I look at a website like this as a tester and I start to explore, where would I start? Well, I always start with things, a mental model or a map of the possibilities and my expectations. With something like this, with something I know, then I know what I want to do. What are my main use cases? What things might interest me? And I might even do a mind map for it. I might look at what kind of components I have and put those on a map. What kind of things am I gaining as first ideas? And I have an internal checklist. Things that bug me. I fly a lot. I book a lot of flights. And there are things that bug me when I work with these kind of applications. So language and localization, interestingly enough, it knew that I was probably more likely to be speaking English than French from my German computer because my German computer is set to English. That's fine. I don't know why it thought I wanted to fly from Paris. Interesting. And I was in France English. So that's a thing that I always like to play with because often behind problems there are other problems. The next thing for me is date pickers. So if I book a flight leaving on the 15th of December, and then I click the next one, and the date is today, click, 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 especially on a mobile, right? Scroll, 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 scroll. That's a bad thing for me. That's one of the things I look out for. And also data loss, right? If I didn't fill something out and I click send, does all of my data get thrown away? Or does random data stay? That actually led me to booking a wrong flight a few weeks ago. So those are the things, those are my internal things that bug me, right? How can I continue? Well, we've just learned using what I learn and what I see. So depending on the things that I've seen and what I've done with this application, something might pop up that I go, that's interesting, I hadn't thought of that, I'll go follow that. But we also have things called heuristics. Who knows what a heuristic is? Okay, for those who don't, basically it's a rule of thumb. It's something that helps us to make a quick decision, and it might not always be true. So there are lots and lots and lots of heuristics for doing exploratory testing. This is just one of them. They like to have funny names. It stands for familiar problems. Those are these things, for example. Then we have expectations of the world. Is it consistent with history, like how the application was before? I won't go through all of them. Is it consistent with comparable products? So if I know how the Lufthansa application works, does it work in this way? And we have this so often from users, right? But it should work like Excel, right? Things we know, we expect, that guides our expectations. Standards, especially with the new data protection things, is it consistent with standards? These are ideas for being able to know whether an application is working well. They can give me test ideas. There are a lot of things, a lot of heuristics and descriptions of them around exploratory testing that I can really recommend that you learn, because those are the things that we use. I might do a tour. I might be a tourist of the application and do something like, so there's a museum tour that is going through the old stuff. So things that have to work, my core things, I go and check all of those because we know the things that we think we haven't touched are the things that are broken, right? And it's important for users that the old things work. A couch potato, I like that. The couch potato tour says, I'm only going to do the minimal amount of work. I'll only do the absolute obligatory fields, and I'm just going to try and not use the mouse or whatever, right? That's a good way of doing a tour of an application as well. And maybe I have a persona. So maybe I want to try and book a flight as a business traveler who wants to get there quickly and doesn't care how much it costs. Or I might want to do a tour as a student who wants to get somewhere and it has to be cheap, and I don't mind if I end up sleeping on the floor in Reykjavik airport. True story. Right? So those are all of the things that can guide my testing via a UI. That is a small, small, small chunk of, both of us could talk for days about just this website. We're not going to today, but catch us in the break if you want some more things, because I'm going to let Thomas take over and go one level deeper.
Right. Exploratory testing, the UI layer is kind of natural. We're having pictures, we have input fields, we can basically see what we're doing.
Are you saying my work is easy?
One day a colleague asked me, Thomas, you're testing, right? Can you help me testing my application? I said, sure. Just send me a link where I can reach your UI and I can have a look into it. Yeah, that's the point. We don't have a UI. We have a service. So can we test it? Yeah, sure we can. Can we test it exploratory? let's try it out. So if we strip the UI, we basically need to rely on other things. We don't see as much. We have our interfaces. We should know how they work, and we can use this to basically test our application or our service on an exploratory level. So let me introduce you to a little example. We have an API documentation that represents a pet. We can do various things with it, and the question is, if this is our UI, how can we test it? How can we use, for example, using this Swagger documentation or using any other tools to explore our in this case, web API? So we know we have some kind of definitions. We define services. We have defined contracts. We have a provider-consumer relationship. We know there is some communication. We know what the consumer expects from the provider, and we can work on it. We can go deeper and explore, because we know there is communication. We know how it should work, and we can sit together using various tools and just explore it. If we get a service to test, always a good question to ask is, do we have some documentation? Because otherwise, how can we be really sure how it should be working? So if there is documentation, very good. Read it and test against it. If we have it, then ask the question, should it behave like this? Is the documentation correct? Is it up to date? And many things more you can explore. You can do to explore your service web API whatsoever, using basically the specification and talking to people who know how it should work, or maybe who've written the specification for us. And there are many more things to just get us basic test ideas. So we have our services, and we can start asking questions. So, for example, we have our service, and there are some mnemonics we can use to give us basic test ideas. So we know that every interface is able to provide us some basic functionality. So we can test our verbs or HTTP methods. For example, if I would imagine I have a dog, I can just go and call my dog by using a GET request, using the dog's name. So what would, if I get if I get a result back that would satisfy me, I can move on. How about adding a new pet to my home? Maybe I get a cat next time. And these are basically the starting points to start discussions. What methods my service should use, and is it using it correctly? Authorization is the next point. So we know using APIs, they are secured in a certain way. The same goes for my dog, for example. If someone else would call my dog, interesting question, would he respond? Or do I need some kind of authorization, like a token? The dog knows me, so he will respond only to me. It's just another thing to get exploratory testing started. So what would happen if a stranger from the streets start calling my dog? Will the GET request be successful or not? And another thing is data. Do I send the GET request with the required with all the required data? Will my dog respond me if I was using a different name, and so on? What happens with bad data formats, and so on, and so on, and so on? So these are very basic ideas I can get using mnemonics. There are some of it. I mentioned. I just mentioned some of them here. These mnemonics give us a very good starting point to start a discussion with our colleagues in the team to get everyone involved.
And you notice that testers really like using mnemonics for everything, right? We've had few hiccups, we've got Vader, we've like Darth Vader. Like testers love this stuff because we need to have so many ideas.
Yeah. So, and using it, just use the tools that you find for your project is the best fit. No matter if you use the Swagger documentation or any arbitrary REST client, just start it. As Alex told us before, they are unknown unknowns. So these are basically the things we don't know. And this is, from my point of view, very true for the unit level. On the API level, okay, I can handle it. I can see something, but on unit level, it gets blurry for me. Funny story. We asked one of our colleagues, can you imagine of an example we can use at a conference? We want to show that it's a good idea to do exploratory testing not only on the UI and the API layer, but also on the unit level. So he started investigating, and after half an hour, he came up with an idea. So what did he do? He started exploring his application. He found a method that was which could be quite useful for us, and he started to dig deeper into it. And at one time or another, he just found a bug, quite severe bug, but we get to it. So
he wrote to us in Teams. He was like, "How are you two finding errors without even being here?"
Yeah. So by just asking for something, we encouraged our colleague to start exploring, and he found a bug, which was quite nice for us. So I give you a little bit time for the next two slides to get a idea on what we will talk about. This is just a simple interface, which obviously is checking a timestamp. Okay, moving on. A little bit more code. So, who found the bug in the implementation?
Or who has a question? Who thinks there might be a problem somewhere? This is the biggest risk for us because if you say something we don't know, we're going to go sure.
Correct. Error was current time wasn't checked. So he tried to enter, what will happen if I enter null? The crash would occur. But let's start from the beginning. So with this example, what we would do naturally, we would use our interface and the implementation to just start testing, to just start exploring using black box and white box testing. So using the black box, we have our interface, which says check timestamp. So we can add current time and a basic timestamp. So what can we do here? If we checked it and hopefully found our null pointer case, then we will have a deeper look. So how can a white box test it? I have some variables. I have methods that are being called. So are they all secure? Are they all null proof? So let's move on. And what everyone would do naturally is start with the happy path. So I have my method. I have two parameters. I just start inputting data, and if I get the expected results, it might be fine. So moving on, what can I do else covering the happy path? So I can use again heuristics. This one is called Goldilocks. So
and I looked it up in French. The Goldilocks heuristic is boucle d'or. Oh, now I don't know the word for that. A fairy tale. So Boucle d'Or avec les trois ours, and they have too big, too small, and just right. Thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah. So what can we do next? If we cover the happy path, so we input two valid long values, and everyone gets executed the correct way, it's fine. So now we can start explore the boundaries. What happens if I input some data that is way too big or way too small, or it's just right? Again covering our happy path. We can play with it. We can test it. Alone, in pairs, in the teams, in the mob session as well. And at some point or another, we should get to the point and ask a billion-dollar question: what happens if it is null? Funny thing is, our colleagues in this project are very test-centric. They're doing TDD, they have reviews, they have test automation, but the null pointer check they just missed it.
We're human, right?
So if we have a big framework, if we have all automated, we still need exploratory testing, and not just on the levels we can see, but it is very, very important to test on all the levels to just avoid having such severe implementation flaws in our application.
Okay, so hopefully we have you convinced that you can explore at the UI, at the API, and at the unit level, even if you're doing things like TDD, because basically TDD is risks that I can identify, and there are always risks I can't. But where does it fit in, right? Are we saying that you should just spend all day, every day exploring? Well, I mean, that would be kind of awesome, but maybe we need to have a bit more structure. So how many people work in agile projects? Yeah. How many people work in waterfall projects? How many people work in something that kind of flickers between the two? Yeah, there we go.
Scrumfall.
Scrumfall or Waterbot? No, wait. So where does it fit in? And the nice answer is that actually these kind of things fit in anywhere, and I'm going to use level in a different sense now, any level. So anytime that I do a bug fix, actually, I'm not usually the ones doing the bug fixes, but anytime one does a bug fix, then you can exploratory test around that. Because let's face it, how many of you have been in the situation that you fixed the bug, and I know that developers hate fixing bugs, right? It's not your favorite thing. You fixed the bug, you've tested it, you've said, okay, I've done this, and then 2 minutes later, the tester comes to you and said, did you even test this? It's done this. Has it happened to you? If not, wow, cool. The world has changed. I'm pleased. Because when I started out, that was how I felt. I'm like, did you even fire up the program? Because another bug has come up which is really obvious. So after bug fixing, grab yourself a tester, grab yourself another developer, and do some exploring around it. Because we also know that any bug that we fix could have been a load-bearing bug. Do you know what one of those is? Load-bearing bug means if we fix this, a lot of other things are going to go wrong. This bug was important for our system. I have seen those bugs. I have seen dark things. So bug fixes, any stories that we have. So acceptance criteria, explaining, don't treat acceptance criteria as just a checklist of things that we have to do. Explore around them. Use examples if you're using things like BDD. Use anti-examples, especially when we're looking at ethical problems. Who could use this to do something bad, right? These are things that we're having to start to talk about when exploring. We can explore epics. I think one of the dangers that we have in Agile really is that we focus on units. So we have our units and our TDD and our unit tests. We have API tests. We have automated tests. Everything is wonderful. We have our UI tests running, and we feel great. And we don't often take the time to explore the journey that our users are going through, because we do it in little blocks. So we can do exploratory testing for epics or for whole releases. One of the things that we like to do in the company in projects that don't have very, very fast release cycles is to get the whole team together with the customers and do an exploratory testing day. It's great. That's the thing that you can do. And it turns out that when you're writing an automated test, be it at any level, what you're doing to write that test, if you're writing it afterwards, is exploring, right? A lot of the time I've sat down to automate a test through the UI, and I found so many problems that I've had to go and have a conversation, and that was actually exploring. And then later on, when they're fixed, we can actually automate the test. And Marit, whose surname I still can't pronounce, I'm sorry, Marit, she says that any failing test is an invitation to explore. Don't just go and change the data that needs to be changed. Think, is something else wrong here? Because I've seen automated tests running that are green, and I watch the screen if it's a UI test, and I can see errors coming up all over the place. But because we're not looking for those in the tests, we don't see them. So a failing automated test is also an invitation to explore. So we can do it anywhere. Anytime you've done something, let's explore this. Okay. So
I think it's now out of the question that we should do exploratory testing. We know we can do it basically in all our parts of the application. We can do it in whichever project we're in, no matter if it's Scrum, Waterfall, Scrumfall, and whatsoever. But the next question would be, who should do it? So just start with a little joke. QA engineer walks into a bar, orders 1 beer, 0 beer, orders 99 whatsoever beers, orders a lizards, orders -1 beers, orders a...
Frindle.
Yeah. And so if you give an application a service to a tester, they tend to be doing a lot of boundary checks. And tester says, because based on his experience, based on documentation, yes, this is working. Our, let's call it order service, it's working perfectly fine. So what can go possibly wrong? What happens if a first real customer walks in and asks not for a beer, but asks the bartender, so where is the bathroom? And everything just bursts into flames. If you do exploratory testing all on your own, you could get into the situation where you're just thinking in one direction, just focus on one part of the application without looking left and right, and this could be a problem not for your focus, but you just missed this information that maybe there is a new interface you don't know about. So one big thing to do is, if you have some testers, have some other people on the project with testing knowledge, they can test all the edge cases. Grab some other people from the project, not only developers, but project leads, POs, I don't know, everyone that is involved in the project, customers. Grab them, do exploratory sessions with them, and the main goal here is to not just focus on one thing, but share your knowledge. It's a very vital thing that if you're doing exploratory testing, you can start on your own, but you shouldn't do it all by yourself all the time. Just spread your knowledge and get everyone involved.
How many of you do mob programming? How many of you do mob testing? Okay, there's homework.
So if you do mob testing next time, you can ask for several things. One thing is it always the case? So if a method will return true, is it true for all of the inputs, or where are the risks? Maybe you need some customer to specify the risks first, and then you can test against it. And what happens if? So these are basic starting questions to grab someone from a team, start asking questions, start the conversation, start the discussion on quality in your projects. Okay.
We're coming to the conclusion. I have it's not quite a manifesto. I've called it loosely held strong opinions. Loosely held because they might change, and strong opinions because I tend to have strong opinions. So first one, exploratory testing is not clicking around. Sorry, Maxime. None of us are zombies. I used to believe very firmly, this was a previous loosely held strong opinion, I used to believe that only testers should do exploratory testing. I have changed that opinion. I now know and believe that everybody is a natural explorer, and those that practice, be they testers or developers, get better. right? So we can all improve at this. Testing isn't the only thing that's exploratory. Debugging, development, basically living is pretty much exploratory. We had a very exciting exploratory journey getting from Charles de Gaulle to the middle of Paris yesterday, right? That was fun. Exploratory tests, I know that we say, a lot of people in the development community and testing community say there are no true best practices. There are only good practices in context, and I believe that. And so far, I've never found a context where exploratory testing wasn't one of the answers. So for me, it is a best practice. Exploring and Agile are both very logical, and they're based on the same premise of doing something and getting feedback. And we think it's going to be just as or even more important in future. The more that we automate, the more that we bring software into our lives, the more things that are happening here, the more we're going to have to explore. So, exploratory testing feels like magic. Obviously, it's not magic. I have whole other talks on what's actually going on in our brains when we do it. But once you notice the power it brings to your project, if you are that person who just helped to find somebody else to find a bug that no one knew about, it feels pretty cool. So we can recommend doing it.
Yes, if you get back home, maybe on Monday, go to your team and just gather around in front of one computer and just get started doing exploratory testing. No matter on which layer you start, just start it.
2 crazy testers told me to have a go, so I will. So do it with teammates. If you have testers in your team, grab them. If not, grab another developer or a product owner or a customer. People who write documentation or work in support are usually fantastic exploratory testers because they have seen the dark side. They know what's going on. Obviously, this is a little bit of an exaggeration. All of the levels, all the things, all the time. But know that you can use it for many more things than you might have thought up until now.
Correct. And because we are all agile, and this approach is so easy to start. Just start it, try it, and if you feel that this is not working for a team because of reasons, then adapt it. Start over, do something different in the next session. It's so easy adaptable. Yeah.
It's very lightweight. And one thing that we will say as well, our emails are on this last slide. If you run into a problem and you don't know how to deal with it, then give us an email, and we'll see what we can do to help you. The last thing that we'd like to leave you with, us here as 2 testers on a stage talking to a lot of developers about testing, we think that this is going to be it's an underrated skill. It still is, even in the testing community sometimes, and we really want to change that, and we really want everyone to know how important this is going to be in the future. It's necessary in every project, and we see scary things coming if we think that we don't need it. So please help us to be part of a movement that says we need this and everyone is responsible for it, because that's how we're going to get great quality. Thank you for listening to us. We have time for one question. Who's going to be the lucky person? Yeah?
First.
How do you see exploring testing in a continuous delivery context?
Do you want to go with this one, or shall I?
Go.
So I think that some things are going to have to change, like that thing I said with getting together with the whole team before a release and the customer. That's not going to be something I want to do 5 times a day, right? I still think it needs a part in there. But I have a feeling, I've not worked in super high continuous delivery things, so this is a hypothesis and I might be wrong. I think that it's going to be slightly decoupled. I think that we will be trusting more on our pre-test release, our pipeline, and maybe monitoring as well. But we will also be constantly feeding back to those things, the things that we are exploring, and then going, we found something here. We need to adapt this. We maybe won't be waiting on the exploratory testing, but we will still have it as part of the process. That's my feeling on it. I'm happy to learn more about that in the break, because it is an interesting question. Do you have something to add to that?
No.
Okay, good answer. Does that help a bit? Okay. Yeah, we're around at least until about 4 o'clock, and then we start our new exploratory journey back to Charles de Gaulle. Thank you for coming, and merci.
Have a nice day.